I never thought I'd be the kind of man who'd follow his wife through the streets of Anchorage on a cold October evening, watching her slip into a downtown hotel like some character from a noir film. But there I was, 39 years old, a successful television producer with 2 decades of marriage behind me, hiding behind my steering wheel like a common stalker. My name is Thad, and for nearly 20 years, I thought I knew everything about Emily. We met in college, fell in love over late-night study sessions and cheap pizza, got married young and built a life together in Alaska's largest city. She became a psychologist with a thriving practice. I worked my way up in local television production, and we raised 2 incredible kids, Sebastian, 17, and Phoebe, 14. We had the house, the careers, the family dinners. We had everything, or so I believed. The unraveling started subtly, like most disasters do. Emily had gone on a solo wellness retreat to Seward last summer, something about needing to recharge and reconnect with herself. I supported it completely. Her job was emotionally draining, listening to people's problems day after day. She deserved a break. When she came back, she seemed lighter, happier. I was glad. But then October arrived with its early darkness and bitter winds, and something shifted. It wasn't dramatic at first. Emily started taking her phone everywhere, to the bathroom, to the kitchen when making coffee, even to our bedroom at night, where she'd keep it face down on her nightstand. She'd check it constantly, a small smile playing on her lips as she typed rapid-fire messages. When I'd lean over to see what was so interesting, she'd tilt the screen away. "Just a client situation," she'd say. "Confidential." I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? 20 years of marriage, 2 children, a mortgage, shared bank accounts. We were partners in every sense of the word. But trust is a funny thing. It's invisible until you start looking for it, and once you start looking, you see its absence everywhere. The real wake-up call came during a particularly busy week in mid-October. I was working on a documentary about commercial fishing in the Bering Sea, coordinating interviews and managing a tight production schedule. I'd text Emily throughout the day, simple things like asking if she could pick up Phoebe from soccer practice or whether she wanted me to grab takeout for dinner. Nothing. I'd call during my lunch break. Straight to voicemail. I'd try again in the afternoon. No answer. When I finally got home that evening, she was already there, cooking dinner as if nothing was wrong. "Hey, I tried reaching you all day," I said, keeping my tone casual. "Everything okay?" She didn't even look up from the stove. "Oh, sorry. My phone died. Forgot my charger at the office." It was a reasonable explanation. Except her phone was sitting on the counter, very much alive, lit up with notifications she quickly swiped away. "Your phone seems to be working now," I pointed out. "Right, I meant it died earlier. I charged it in the car." She turned to me with that professional smile she used with difficult clients, warm but impenetrable. "Why, did you need something?" That's when I knew. Not the details, not the who or the how, but I knew something was fundamentally wrong. You don't live with someone for 2 decades without learning their tells. Emily was lying, and she was good at it. Over the next week, I tested my theory. I'd send messages at random times, call during her supposed lunch breaks, try to reach her between client sessions when I knew her schedule was clear. The pattern was consistent: delayed responses, ignored calls, vague explanations. She was avoiding me, and doing it deliberately. I should have confronted her directly. A younger version of me would have. But I'd seen enough drama in my years producing reality television to know that direct confrontation often yields nothing but denials and deflection. I needed proof. So I did something I'm not proud of. On a Friday afternoon, I told Emily I was driving to Fairbanks for the weekend to scout locations for a new project. I even packed a bag, kissed her goodbye, told the kids I'd see them Sunday night. But instead of heading north, I checked into a small motel on the outskirts of Anchorage and waited. At 7:30 that evening, Emily left our house. I followed her, maintaining a careful distance as she drove downtown. She parked near a boutique hotel on 5th Avenue and walked inside. I waited 20 minutes, then followed. The lobby was busy enough that I could blend in, pretending to check my phone while keeping an eye on the elevator indicators. She'd gone to the 4th floor. I took the stairs, emerging into a quiet hallway just in time to see her knock on room 412. The door opened. A man stood there, tall, maybe mid-40s, with the kind of rugged handsomeness that probably worked well in whatever he did for a living. They didn't embrace dramatically or kiss passionately like in the movies. Instead, Emily simply walked inside, and the door closed behind her. I stood in that hallway for 10 minutes, maybe 15, my mind racing through possibilities. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe he was a colleague, another psychologist, and they were discussing a case. Maybe. But I knew better. You don't drive across town on a Friday night to discuss case files in a hotel room. You don't ignore your husband's calls all day for professional meetings. I returned to my car and waited. 3 hours later, Emily emerged. She drove home, and I gave her enough time to settle in before I made my grand reappearance, claiming the Fairbanks trip had been postponed due to weather. She accepted this without question, without suspicion, without guilt in her eyes. That's what hurt most, how easy it was for her to lie to my face. I spent the weekend in a fog, going through the motions of family life while my mind spun in circles. On Monday, I called in sick to work and did something more invasive. I drove to that hotel and, using skills I'd picked up from years of investigative journalism, managed to charm the front desk clerk into revealing that room 412 was registered to a Rudolph Kensington from Seward, where Emily had gone on her wellness retreat. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. I drove to Seward that afternoon, a 2.5-hour journey down the Seward Highway with Tinnigan Arm glittering darkly to my right. The town was small enough that finding information wasn't difficult. Rudolph Kensington owned an adventure tour company, kayaking, hiking, wildlife viewing. Exactly the kind of thing Emily would have signed up for during her retreat. I found his office on the waterfront, a modest building with pictures of smiling tourists and glaciers on the walls. A young woman at the desk greeted me cheerfully. "Hi there. Are you looking to book a tour?" "Actually, I'm looking for Rudolph. Is he in?" "He's out on a kayaking expedition right now, but he should be back around 4. Can I take a message?" I checked my watch. 2:30. "I'll wait, thanks." I spent the next 90 minutes in a coffee shop across the street, watching the harbor and trying to decide what I was going to say. What do you say to the man who's been sleeping with your wife? The scenarios played out in my head, each one more confrontational than the last. But when Rudolph finally returned, leading a group of tourists off a van and helping them with their gear, something in me shifted. He looked ordinary, happy, completely oblivious to the devastation he'd helped create. I waited until the tourists dispersed, then crossed the street. "Rudolph Kensington?" He turned, smiling that easy smile of someone who loves his job. "That's me. What can I do for you?" "My name is Thad. I'm Emily's husband." The smile vanished. His face went through a series of expressions, surprise, recognition, guilt, fear, all in the span of seconds. I don't," he stammered. "Let's not do this here," I said, keeping my voice level. "Is there somewhere we can talk privately?" He nodded mutely and led me inside to a small office cluttered with maps and equipment. Once the door closed, he seemed to shrink into himself. "How long?" I asked. "Listen, man, How long?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Since July. She came on one of my tours. We just connected. I didn't know she was married at first. She wasn't wearing a ring. Emily always took her ring off for outdoor activities. Said she didn't want to lose it. But you found out eventually," I said. "Yeah. She told me after the first time. I said we should stop, that I don't do that kind of thing. But she said her marriage was already over, that you two were just going through the motions for the kids." His eyes met mine, desperate for understanding. "She said you didn't love her anymore." The words hit like a physical blow. Not because they were true, they weren't, but because Emily had actually said them. She'd rewritten our entire relationship to justify her affair. "Did she tell you about Sebastian's college applications? How we stay up late together helping him with his essays? Did she mention that we just celebrated our 19th anniversary last month with a weekend in Homer, just the two of us? That we still have date nights every Thursday?" My voice was rising despite my efforts to control it. "Did she tell you any of that?" Rudolph looked at the floor. "No. What happens now?" I asked. "Are you planning to continue this? Move her to Seward? Play house with my family?" "I don't know, man. I really don't. This is all." He gestured helplessly. "I never meant for this to happen." I studied him for a long moment. He looked genuinely miserable, which gave me no satisfaction whatsoever. "Here's what's going to happen," I said quietly. "You're going to end it. Today. Right now. You're going to call her and tell her it's over, that you can't do this anymore. And then you're going to stay away from my family. And if I don't, then I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of business you're really running. I work in television, Rudolph. I know how to tell a story, and I know how to make it spread. Your company will be finished before Christmas." It was a bluff, mostly. But he didn't know that. That's blackmail, he said weakly. Call it whatever you want. But you're going to do it, because despite everything, you're not a terrible person. You're just a man who made bad choices. So make a better one now. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he pulled out his phone. Put it on speaker, I said. His hands shook slightly as he dialed. Emily answered on the second ring, her voice warm and intimate in a way I hadn't heard directed at me in months. Hey you. I wasn't expecting to hear from you until tonight. Rudolph's eyes flicked to me. I nodded. Emily, we need to talk. Us, it has to end. Silence. Then, what? Why? What happened? Your husband is sitting right here in my office. The sharp intake of breath was audible even through the phone's tiny speaker. Thad. Her voice had changed completely, higher, tighter, afraid. Hi, Emily, I said. Oh God, Thad, please, I can explain. No, I interrupted. You can't. Not in any way that matters. But here's what you can do. You can come home tonight and tell our children that their mother has been having an affair. Or you can let me tell them. Your choice. Thad, please don't do this. The kids don't need to know. We can work this out, just the two of us. Please. The time for just the two of us was before you spent 3 months sneaking around with another man. I'll see you at home. I hung up and looked at Rudolph. Stay away from her. Stay away from all of us. I left him standing there in his office, surrounded by pictures of glaciers and mountains, monuments to adventures that would now be forever tainted for him. The drive back to Anchorage was surreal. The autumn sun was setting early, painting the mountains in shades of orange and purple. I'd driven this highway countless times with Emily, the kids excited in the back seat as we headed to weekend getaways in Seward. Those memories felt poisoned now. When I got home, Emily's car was already in the driveway. I found her in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, her face blotchy from crying. The kids? I asked. Sebastian's at Philip's house. Phoebe's at soccer practice. I told them to stay out until 8. I nodded and sat in the chair across from her, maintaining distance. Talk. And she did. For 2 hours, Emily told me everything. How she'd felt invisible in our marriage, how I was always working or tired, how she'd forgotten what it felt like to be desired, how Rudolph had paid attention to her, really listened, made her feel young and exciting again. How it started as just flirting, then emails, then the trips to Seward every few weeks when she claimed to be at conferences. I listened to all of it, this alternate narrative of our marriage where I was the negligent husband and she was the lonely wife driven into another man's arms. You could have talked to me, I said when she finally fell silent. You're a psychologist, for God's sake. You counsel couples through this exact situation. Why didn't you use your own advice? I tried, she insisted. Last spring, I suggested we do therapy together. You said you were too busy. I remembered that conversation. It was true. I'd been in the middle of a major project, working 16-hour days. One conversation, Emily. You brought it up once. I asked if we could revisit it after my project finished, and you never mentioned it again. Because I knew what you'd say. You always have a project, always have an excuse. Your work comes first, always. And running into another man's arms was your solution? She had no answer for that. Over the next weeks, we existed in a strange limbo. We told the kids I was staying in a hotel temporarily due to work, which wasn't entirely a lie. I had rented a room and was basically living there. But we hadn't told them the real reason, hadn't made any final decisions. Sebastian knew something was wrong. At 17, he was perceptive enough to sense the tension. Phoebe, thankfully, seemed oblivious. Emily wanted to try counseling, wanted to fight for our marriage. I found it grimly ironic that now, after everything, she wanted to put in the work. But I couldn't do it. Every time I looked at her, I saw her walking into that hotel room. I heard her voice on Rudolph's phone, warm and intimate. I thought about the hundreds of texts and calls I'd made that she'd ignored while she was with him. What finally made my decision was Sebastian. One evening in early November, he showed up at my hotel room. Dad, can we talk? I let him in, my heart sinking. Of course. What's up? He sat on the edge of the bed, looking older than his 17 years. I know you and Mom are having problems. Real problems, not just work stuff. I didn't insult him by denying it. Yeah, we are. Is it because she cheated on you? The question hung in the air like smoke. What makes you think that? I'm not stupid, Dad. She's been acting weird for months, and now you're living in a hotel. Plus, I heard her on the phone last week crying to Sandra about how she'd ruined everything. Sandra was Emily's sister. I did the math. I sat down next to him. I'm sorry you had to figure it out that way. Are you getting divorced? The word felt heavy, final. I think so, yeah. He nodded slowly. You know what's weird? I'm not that surprised. And I'm not even that upset. That did surprise me. No. My friend Philip's parents got divorced last year. It was messy, lots of fighting, lots of using him as a messenger. But you know what he said? That after the divorce, everything got calmer. His parents were happier apart than they'd been together for years. He looked at me seriously. I don't want you and Mom to stay together just for us. My girlfriend's parents did that, and she says it was worse than if they'd just split up. Constant tension, walking on eggshells, parents who clearly couldn't stand each other but pretended everything was fine. You have a girlfriend? I asked, momentarily distracted. He blushed. Sandra. Well, Sandra from my English class, not Aunt Sandra. But that's not the point. The point is, Phoebe and I will be okay. We'd rather have two parents who are honest and separate than two parents who are miserable together. When had my son become so wise? What about Mom? I asked. Are you angry with her? He considered this. I don't know yet. I'm disappointed, I guess. She always tells us to communicate, to be honest, to deal with our problems directly. And then she goes and does this. He shrugged. But she's still my mom. I still love her. I'm not sure I respect her the same way right now. That conversation made up my mind. I filed for divorce the next week. Emily was devastated, which struck me as deeply unfair. She'd made her choices, taken her risks, and now she was angry that there were consequences. She tried everything: tears, anger, promises, guilt. She swore she'd ended things with Rudolph. He'd confirmed it when I called him to verify. She offered to quit her job, move to a new city, do whatever it took. But I was done. Not because I didn't love her. Part of me still did, probably always would, but because I couldn't trust her. And a marriage without trust is just two people living in the same space, pretending. The divorce process was surprisingly civil, all things considered. We agreed to split everything 50-50. The house would be sold and proceeds divided, retirement accounts split, custody shared. Neither of us wanted a drawn-out battle. We'd hurt each other enough. The hardest part was telling Phoebe. She cried for hours, demanded to know why, insisted we were giving up too easily. Sebastian sat with her and explained in his steady, mature way that sometimes adults make mistakes and have to face consequences, that Mom and Dad still loved them both but couldn't be married anymore. Did Dad cheat? Phoebe asked through her tears. No, Sebastian said firmly. Dad didn't do anything wrong. Emily had the grace to nod in agreement, even though I could see it killed her to admit fault in front of our daughter. We put the house on the market in December. The Alaska real estate market was slow that time of year, but we had a decent offer by January. Emily found an apartment downtown, close to her office. I rented a larger place in Eagle River, wanting space and distance. The kids would split time between us, 1 week with me, 1 week with her. The strangest part of the whole experience was how Emily's affair became public knowledge. I never told anyone except Sebastian what had really happened. But Sandra, Emily's sister, apparently told her husband, who told his brother, who told his wife, and within a month half of Anchorage seemed to know. Emily's professional reputation took a hit. Clients started canceling appointments, referrals dried up. It turned out that people don't want marriage counseling from someone who destroyed her own marriage. I felt bad about that, despite everything. I never wanted to ruin her career. But the universe, it seemed, had its own sense of justice. In February, 3 months after I filed for divorce, I got a call from an unknown number. Is this Thad? Yeah, who's this? My name is Philip Marsh. I was Rudolph Kensington's business partner. I sat up straighter. Yeah. Turns out I wasn't the only partner he was screwing over. Rudolph's been embezzling from our company for the past 2 years. The investigation started in November, right after you visited him. He got paranoid, started acting erratic, made some sloppy mistakes. The whole thing unraveled. He's facing charges now. I didn't know what to say. Anyway, Philip continued, I wanted to thank you. If you hadn't confronted him when you did, if he hadn't started making those mistakes, we might never have caught him. He would have bankrupted the company and disappeared. So, thank you. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment staring at nothing. Rudolph was facing embezzlement charges. His life was imploding, and it had started with my visit to Seward. I hadn't intended that, hadn't even known about his illegal activities, but the timing was impossible to ignore. Karma, I suppose. I never told Emily about that call. By then, we were barely speaking except about logistics with the kids. Our divorce was finalized in March, almost exactly 6 months after I'd followed her to that hotel. In the aftermath, I threw myself into work and parenting. Sebastian was applying to colleges, planning his future. Phoebe was adjusting to the new normal slowly. We had family dinners at my place on my weeks, and I made sure to be present, really present, in ways I maybe hadn't been before. One evening in April, Sebastian came over even though it was Emily's week. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Always. Do you regret marrying Mom?" I thought about it carefully. No. If I hadn't married her, I wouldn't have you and Phoebe. And there were a lot of good years, Sebastian. Really good years. Your mom and I built a life together, raised 2 incredible kids. The fact that it ended badly doesn't erase all the good that came before. Do you think you'll ever forgive her? I already have, mostly. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting or wanting to reconcile. It just means I'm not carrying around anger anymore. That anger was eating me alive, and I decided I'd rather be free of it. "That's very mature of you," he said with a slight smile. "Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain." He laughed, and in that moment, I knew we'd be okay. All of us, eventually. I ran into Emily once in May, at Phoebe's soccer game. We sat at opposite ends of the bleachers, both cheering for our daughter. Afterward, as parents milled around, I saw Emily standing alone by her car. She looked tired but composed, wearing her professional armor. I walked over. "Hey," I said. "Hey." She seemed surprised I'd approached her. "How are you doing?" "Really?" She considered the question. "I'm managing. Lost some clients, but I'm rebuilding. Started seeing my own therapist, which I probably should have done years ago." She paused. "I heard about Rudolph. The embezzlement thing." "Yeah. I didn't know about any of that. I thought he was just—" "I don't know what I thought." "I believe you. Do you?" She looked at me with something like hope. "Yeah. You made terrible choices, Emily, but you're not a bad person. You're just someone who made mistakes. We all do." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Thad. For all of it. You deserved better." "We both did," I said quietly. "But we are where we are." We stood there for a moment, 2 people who'd shared 20 years of life now standing as strangers. Then Phoebe ran up, sweaty and excited about her team's win, and the moment passed. That was the last real conversation Emily and I had. We settled into our separate lives, co-parenting from a distance, being civil at school events and holidays. The kids adapted better than I'd feared. Sebastian went off to college in Seattle that fall. Phoebe started high school and joined the debate team. Life moved forward, as it always does. Sometimes, late at night in my apartment, I think about that moment in the hotel hallway, watching Emily disappear into room 412. How one decision can fracture an entire life. How trust, once broken, can never quite be restored to its original form. But I also think about Sebastian's wisdom, about choosing honesty over comfortable lies, about the fact that staying in a broken marriage would have taught my children that love means accepting betrayal, that commitment means sacrificing self-respect. I'm teaching them something different now, that you can love someone and still walk away. That forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is start over. Is it the ending I would have chosen? No. But it's the ending I got, and I'm making peace with it. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.